Hi there everyone, Josiah here with Womprat Creations, and this week's build is going to be another shop infrastructure build. This one is, like all of my other shop infrastructure builds, it's solving a problem that I have. The problem that I'm going to be solving this week is this. This is my current storage solution for my shop rags, and I have a bunch of different kinds in here. I have some microfiber cloths, I have some surgical cloths, I have terry cloth, bits of old t-shirts, all kinds of rags in this one crate, and that's it. And it's not ideal. Like I said, I have a couple different kinds of cloths in here, and I use them for different purposes. I have different cloths and rags for different applications, and it's kind of a pain to go digging through this looking for a specific cloth, especially when sometimes I need it quickly. A lot of times when I need to reach for a cloth, it's to clean up something that I wasn't planning for, and most of the time I'm trying to do it before that something dries. So digging through this is not an ideal situation. Also, I don't have anywhere to put dirty rags other than back in here, which I don't want to do, so they end up just on any surface in the shop, and I have all these dirty rags laying around until I go around and clean them up. So I have designed what I think is going to be a pretty cool little storage solution for my rags, so that one, I'll be able to have different compartments that I can put different types of rags. That way I'm not having to dig through to find the type of cloth that I want, and it'll solve my solution of not having a place to put dirty rags, which, spoiler alert, this crate is going to be my new dirty rag depository. So, yeah, that's it. That's going to be today's build. I'm super excited for it, and let's go over to the table saw. All right, you guys, so I have all of my pieces cut out, and I did a couple things a little differently, at least things that I haven't done on the channel before. So my two side pieces, you saw that I used my jigsaw to cut out these kind of funky angles. And this is going to make more sense once I get on to assembly in a moment, but this was not at all complicated to do, especially because this is MDF. It cuts beautifully. And like I said in my drill press cart build, I'm kind of switching to MDF for these types of builds because the 3/4 inch thick MDF has enough structural integrity to make it worth it, and it's cheaper than plywood. And if you're wanting to paint your carts, which is what I'm using these for, you get a better finish. You do have to seal it first, but yeah, that's the reason I'm going to MDF, and it cuts really nicely. The only real downside to it is when you're cutting it with the table saw, at least, it produces a lot of dust. And I'm going to be solving that very soon, but that's a build for another day. The other thing that I've done differently, and this is actually the first time I've done this with this table saw, which is always a little scary for me, doing new things with a table saw, because that's a tool that deserves some respect. But I cut out some bevel cuts on the table saw. And for those of you who get these shop infrastructure build files from my Patreon, I engineered this so that all of them are 45-degree cuts. They're not anything too complicated. So if you have a regular table saw, you'll be able to cut these pieces out just fine. But now I think it's time for assembly. And for that, I am going to be using what I have found to be my favorite method so far, which is pinning the pieces in place and then using my pocket hole jig to actually secure everything together. That, coupled with some wood glue, just seems to me to be the best method of joining two pieces of wood that I have found. I mean, these pocket hole jigs, the pocket hole jig that I have, it's a little bit more work to drill out all the holes beforehand, and you do have to kind of think about how two pieces are going to be joining to get those holes right. But once you get used to thinking like that, it's not much of a extra step, and in my opinion, it makes assembly and the sturdiness of what you're making so much better than anything else that I've found, that it takes that extra step of pre-drilling holes totally worth it. So, on to assembly. Okay, so I now have a receptacle that I can grab rags from that keeps them separated a little bit. You can see that I have my surgical cloth and my terry cloth towels up in this first one. I have my microfiber towels in this one, and then I have all of my kind of throwaway rags in this bottom one. And this is kind of short because it really doesn't need to be very tall, but the reason for that is because this crate that I use to store my towels in is going to live right up here. And once I'm done with the rag, I'll throw it in here. Then I can wash them all at once and just put them back in their respective compartment in here. This has been a long time coming, and but that being said, it's definitely not this is something that I could have lived without, and it's something that I did live without for a while. But as I work in the shop, I try to make my life as easy as possible in here, because sometimes things get a little frustrating. And I'm sure well, I don't know if you could tell during some of the assembly time lapses that we had for this, but I was getting a little frustrated with some of this. My measurements on my cuts were not exactly right, and that's on me. I just didn't take the time to really make sure that I was cutting everything exactly right, and because I 3D model all of these before I build it, that way you guys who are on Patreon can download the files and do whatever you want with them. Because I do that, sometimes I end up making some really exact measurements, and I'm not always so exacting in execution. Sometimes I rush it a little bit, and so because of that, I kind of leave myself little room for error, and I had some errors when assembling this, and I was getting a little frustrated. So because things can sometimes get a little frustrating, I try to make everything that I can be simple and make my life easier. I try to do that. And this is one of those builds. It's something that just kind of makes my life a little bit easier. And I'm really looking forward to being able to use this. And I really do think it's going to make my life in the shop just that much easier. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this build. I know that it's not the most exciting, but we did some cool different stuff. We worked with some different angles. Normally I just do regular 90-degree angle cuts on my table saw, and today we did some 45s, and I even broke out the jigsaw. And yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how this came out, even if it was a bit of a fight to get it together. But it came together, and I forgot to mention this, the paint job on this is, while it is not perfect, and I don't really need it to be, it's a lot better than the paint job that came out on my drill press cart. And I think the reason for that is I picked up some of my regular sanding sealer as opposed to the crap that I used on my drill press cart. So I have no alligator skin orange peel texture on my cart, which is nice. That being said, it's not perfect. Could have sanded this down and made it really nice, but it's a rag dispenser. It doesn't need to be particularly pretty, and it's not, but it works. Thank you guys for tuning in for another show and tell. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Hey, look at you, you overachiever you. You watched that entire video and you deserve something awesome in return. You can head over to wompratcreations.com. The link will be down in the description, and you can pick yourself up some awesome Womprat Creations merch, just like this original Only You Can Prevent Imperial Invasions Ewok t-shirt. Thanks, guys.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
316, report to control.
53 to upper bay door. 53 to upper bay door.